This is to prove that, yes, this is live at what I like to call the Shuler Studios. And it doesn't matter how much you prepare, but there are always so many details to take care of. So I appreciate if you've been waiting for a minute or so to get into the webinar. And we will get started in just a moment. But I wanted to say hi personally and to thank you for being here. And then we're going to get started on the presentation soon. But again, thank you for being here. My name is Dawn Shuler with the Shuler Group and Smart Business from Your Soul. And I'm really excited to share with you tonight this information about bank. It has been one of the most life-changing things that's happened to me in my life and my business. And so I really just can't wait to share it with you. So thank you for spending some of your time with me tonight to take a look at this system. So if you can just be patient with me for a few seconds while I do all the administrative details behind the scenes to make this work, I appreciate it. So we're just about ready to get started. Here we go. Here we go. Awesome. All right, so what we are here to talk about tonight is a system that I have found just to be amazing, as I said, life-changing, business-changing. And so just thank you for being here and letting me be able to share this with you. So the system is called Bank, and I'm going to tell you more about what that means, why it's called bank. This is not a bank. This is not a financial institution, although it will hopefully help you with your finances. I'm going to share with you the secret, the science, the system, and the solution to really making a bigger difference in the world, making a bigger difference with what you're doing and why you even started your business in the first place, or why you're doing the work that you're doing in the first place. A couple of administrative details. There is a chat window, so feel free to put in there any questions, any comments, anything you want to say or do. I'm doing my best to be kind of bilocated and pay attention to the presentation as well as to what you all are saying. So I may see your question or your comment, and then when it's an appropriate place in the presentation, I will then answer that question. So once again, thank you for being here. All right, so a little bit about me for those of you who either are not intimately associated with me or not intimately associated with my newest reincarnation. And what I have found over my 15 plus years being in business is that we are constantly reinventing ourselves. I like to think of it as we're constantly growing into the people we are meant to be. And so what you see on the screen now is the most recent reincarnation, the most recent sloughing off of what does not equal Dawn anymore to keep revealing the true self behind. So a few years ago, I guess it's been about 3, I formalized my company into the Shuler Group LLC. I've been working with business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives for over 15 years. And I would say I've loved every minute of it, and I've loved a lot of it, and I've learned a lot from that. And in addition, I've written several books. I'm a speaker, and I'm doing that more and more and more. As a matter of fact, I have a speaking engagement tomorrow, and I think I have one next week, and then I think I have 2 the week after that. So that's actually been very exciting to see that come about for me, because those have been some of my goals. So what I am going to share with you today is a system that can increase your sales up to 300%. And that sounds like a really large number, I'm sure. And I'm going to show you some details, some statistics about how that's been, how it can be even more than that. So let's get started. Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Cash Flow, and several other books, says the ability to sell is the #1 skill in business. Not the number 2, not the number 3, but the #1. Now, of course, whatever you're doing in your business or your career, you have to be good at, whether you're a coach, a consultant, a healer, a writer, a marketing expert, whatever it is. If you don't do that well, you're going to lose clients and you're not going to get any clients. And you have to get clients. You have to get customers. And if you can't get clients, you can't get customers, you really have no business. It was really interesting because a very good friend of mine told me just recently that it took her 5 years being in business for herself to realize that she needed to be able to sell. She was actually a salesperson. And it completely changed her whole way of looking at business once she realized that. And I would just like to point out, we're all in sales all the time. So for example, honey, could you take out the trash? Mom, could I borrow the car keys? Honey, could you close the cabinet doors? Mom, could you take care of all of those details for the event that I'm supposed to register for and all the details I need for college? Can you do that for me? We're all in sales. Sales is really an exchange of information to get people to do something you want them to do and for them to get you to do something they want you to do. And we exchange that. This is why this is so important. According to Salesforce.com, 67% of business owners, salespeople, professionals, entrepreneurs miss their quota. That means that they're not making 2/3 of the goals that they've set for themselves, and that they're only making 1/3 of what they want to do, whether that's the revenue or closing the sales or number of clients or number of customers or number of products sold. They're missing their quota. 67% are missing quota. 87% are not prepared when they walk into a sales presentation or have a sales conversation. That is such a huge number. And either as a result of that or other factors, 66% of us are turned off. And let me give you a very quick story. I've got so many stories, and I know that we've got limited time, so I'll try to make it very quick. We ran into a financial advisor, someone that Mark, my husband, had been running into at networking events. So he was friendly with her, and she lived in our town, which is a small town of like 1,400 people. And we ran into her at this little restaurant, one of two in Myersville, and said something like, my daughter's birthday, her 18th birthday was the next day. She goes, oh, your daughter's turning 18. You know that there's some great financial investments. And how about I come over sometime this weekend and just share with her some of this information? And I said, well, it's her 18th birthday. We've got a birthday party and all that. Well, it will help me meet my quota. Now, I have to say, the moment she said that, I was completely turned off, because why do I care about her quotas? Yes, I'm a friendly person. I care about people, but that's not what's going to motivate me to try to help you, especially if I don't really know you. And it went far beyond that. And she really screwed up trying to get a sales presentation in front of us. But that was the first strike against her, is saying, it will help me meet my quotas. If it was my best friend for 20 years and she said that, absolutely. But somebody I'd never met before, no, I don't care. I'm turned off. Part of the problem is we've heard the myth. We may even have been coached on it. We may have taken sales training. That is, sales is a number game. And that to get more yeses, you have to get more nos. And that if you make 100 phone calls, you're going to get 2 yeses out of that. So that means 98 no's and 2 yeses. Who wants that? Who wants that rejection rate? Like, oh my gosh, it sounds awful, doesn't it? And so let's look at it a little more as in the law of attraction. That to get more yeses, what if you get more yeses? Like, instead of having to get 98 no's in order to get 2 yeses, what if you just got as many possible yeses as possible, and then you have a whole lot of yeses? It really is a different way to look at it, isn't it? So companies spend thousands of hours and millions of dollars on teaching their people how to sell, when the only thing they should be focusing on is why people buy. And even if you're not a big company and you don't have a big sales force, you've probably spent some time, energy, and money working on your sales skills. And there are some valuable sales skills and techniques. We've probably all heard the whole, as you've got the contract and you kind of push the pen over to the side of the desk so that they subconsciously pick up the pen and then they're more likely to sign. Like, okay, we can get into the psychology of that. But what if we really understood the psychology of why they're going to say yes? What is going to make them buy? Wouldn't that be more valuable? According to Word of Mouth Marketing Association, the best salesperson outsells the average salesperson 57 to 1. And now you could look at that and say, well, they're just natural salespeople, or they've been doing it for 20, 30 years. And I, of course, run into that all the time when I'm talking to people. They say, oh, I've learned all this, or I know it, or I just intuitively, wend my way through it. Well, and some of that may be intuition, and some of it may be that they've subconsciously absorbed the information that I'm about to teach you. And what I want to do is make this available to more of us than just the people who are natural at it or intuitively get it. So if we look at that 57 to 1 figure, does that really mean that that person works 57 to 1 more hours, generates 57 to 1 more leads, sees 57 to 1 more people, gets 57 to 1 more no's? No. It's that somehow they've figured out how to have those conversations, how to communicate with the people. They've learned the secret. And the secret is it's not a numbers game, it's a people game. And what I know pretty much from the people that have signed up for this webinar, who are watching this live, watching the recording, the people in my circle whom I adore, and I can see some of you are on here live right now, is we're doing what we're doing because we want to make a difference. We want to change the world. We want to be of significance. We might want to leave a legacy. We want to matter because it's about people. And then the problem with those of us who are really into the whole, I just want to change the world, I don't need to make a lot of money, is that, well, then we don't make a lot of money because we're not fully doing our business and fully making the sales to really make the difference we need to make. So Brian Tracy says all business is a people business. Everything we do benefits people. Even if somebody were on this webinar who their company makes widgets, it's so people can use those widgets. Even if those widgets fit into a bigger machine, that machine is used by a company whose end goal is to somehow serve people. All business is a people business. So that's where bank comes in. At its core, it is a personality profiling system. It's a personality assessment, which we've taken tons of them, and I'll speak a little bit more about that in a moment. It's people focused, it's about the person, which is one of the reasons why I love it. And it's profit driven because I've done a lot of work on myself on a lot of things, but when we're talking about profit, about what's my money story, what are my self-limiting beliefs, what's my revenue threshold, and what I am coming more and more and more to understand is that the more profitable I am, that means the more difference I'm making, which is what's at the core and ultimately the most important. I want to make a difference. And bank helps me do that. So this is not mine. I did not create this. This was created by an amazing, brilliant, fabulous woman named Sherry Tree. And she founded this system. She created this system over 20 years ago. And she did it out of, we could call it desperation. We could also call it out of wanting to reach her goals and wanting to do what she knew she was capable of. So let me tell you a little bit about her and some of her story, because it's actually an amazing success story, but not at the beginning. She started out as a financial advisor. She had read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he says if you're going to be successful, you really need to be a successful salesperson. So if you want to have a successful business, you want to make a lot of money, whatever, go into sales. So that's what she did. And she went into financial services. And the first year, she made a whopping $700. And if you're really realizing that that's only 3 digits, and that probably doesn't cover your expenses for a year, much, not even a month, that wasn't good enough. So she did a whole lot of work. She took training programs, she got mentors, she got coaches. And after 3 years, after 5 years, she worked really hard and she got her income up to $72,000 a year. Not bad. Very, very respectable, right? Well, she's a very high achiever, and that was not good enough for her. So she said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be, I got to be able to do better than this. So insert bank, where she reverse engineered this system, applied it to sales, and used it. And so what she found was, after implementing bank, she made $500,000. That's a 695% increase in her revenue. Continued to use it. Within 3 years, her revenues were over $1 million a year. And that's a 1,388% increase in sales. So as a result of that, and people saw her success and they said, so how did you do it? She was invited to speak all around the world. She was very, very pleased to share the stage with Robert Kiyosaki, who is one of her heroes from, many years ago, reading the book and then being able to share the stage with him. She was so excited to do that. She just spoke recently, earlier this spring, at 2 of Tony Robbins' events. She was invited to one, and when she did so well, then he asked her to the second event, and she was voted the best speaker at the Real Estate Wealth Expo in Toronto. So she did a pretty darn good job. She's also shared the stage with Sir Richard Branson. And then Harvard University asked her to be a guest lecturer to their MBA program. And funny enough, that's when her parents said, oh, you're actually legit. Like, wow, you really made it. Like, you must really know what you're doing. Didn't matter that she'd made millions of dollars already before this. It was the fact that she was asked to come speak to Harvard that was for them the icing on the cake. She also spoke at University of California, Berkeley. She helped the alumni program create a product and learn to sell it back to the university using bank. And then last year, San Francisco State University did an independent research study to prove that, yes, indeed, the bank system truly does predict buying behavior and that it's unique. They had actually a 2-pronged approach to this study. One, was there anything else like it? Was it just a duplicate or a copy of something else? And does it do what it says it does, which is predicts buying behavior in under 90 seconds? And they proved both points. There's nothing else like it. And yes, it predicts buying behavior. Einstein says, any fool can complicate things. It takes a genius to simplify them. And what I have to say is this is one of the reasons why I adore bank. And it is because it's accessible. It's simple to understand. And when we get into the 4 main personalities, you'll probably have a better understanding of what I mean. But it's really accessible. My 2 daughters, 18 and 20 years old, they're using it. There's even a set of this personality assessment that's for little kids who can't read. It is that accessible. So let's start with the science behind bank. So if you're familiar with personality assessments, you've taken tests, you've done whatever, what it does is it usually divides the world, the population, into different groups. And so that's what bank is, 4 groups: blueprint, action, nurturing, knowledge. And this is based on Hippocrates, the father of medicine, when he incorporated the 4 temperaments into his medical practice. So he said, so if you look at the world and there's 4 types of people, let's treat them based on who they are. So instead of just saying, oh, anybody who has this disease, we're going to treat everybody who has this disease or this illness the exact same way, regardless of who they are. Instead, he said, well, wait a minute, based on who they are, maybe we should treat them a little differently, and found great success in doing so. Most personality assessments like Myers-Briggs, DISC, StrengthsFinder, there's so many out there. They're all based on that same idea that let's divide the world into these different aspects and then create some sort of system out of that. And so these different systems might have to do with how do you respond to stress? How do you respond to your environment? How do you process the world? What are your strengths? And they're all valid. You know, some of you who know me know that I love strengths finders, and I will talk about my 5 strengths ad nauseum because it really does describe me in that particular aspect. The difference about Bank is the fact that, yes, it divides the world into these 4 different people, but what it does is it says, how do these 4 different kinds of people make buying decisions? So it is the only personality assessment in the world that specifically deals with sales and why people buy and how they make buying decisions. So if you're familiar with the Da Vinci Code, you either watched the movie or you read the book. There's a part in the story where they're on the trail of finding the Holy Grail. And one of the last clues is in what's called a cryptex. And so Robert Langdon, I think is his name, he has to solve the clue because the final clue about the location of the Holy Grail is in this cryptex. Now, the kicker is if he gets the code wrong, he's got to answer the question. He's got to put in the answer to the question. If he gets it wrong, there's a vial of vinegar inside. It will break open and it will dissolve the parchment on which the clue is written. So he's got to get it right. Now, if he gets it right, woohoo, open it up, boom, there's the parchment, location of the Holy Grail, life is good, the world is saved. If you got it wrong, vinegar dissolves it all. Not good. Tony Robbins says, let your prospect determine your presentation. Now, what's funny about this quote is this has been bleeding into our lives in just about every segment. For example, this morning, Mark and I were doing our regular tea ritual out on the picnic table outside. And our adorable, wonderful Kojo kitty is lying on the table. He's so happy to be near us. He's just relaxing. But Mark gets out the food and he starts giving him treats and da-da-da. And then Kojo all of a sudden gets up and he's like, woohoo, treats. And I said, let your prospect determine your presentation. Kojo wasn't asking for treats. He was happy just to lie there and be with us. Let him determine what we should do. It's real in life and it's real in business. So here's where we bring in BANK. And BANK is an acronym and it stands for the 4 different codes: blueprint, action, nurturing, knowledge. Now, the most common mistake for all of us, until we know better, or unless we're really intuitive and we figured this out a while ago, is that we normally have one presentation. And as a business coach, I've taught this to my clients. Have a sales process. You got to have a sales process. And in that sales process, you probably have somewhere where you have a presentation or you have a discovery call or you have an outline of points that you want to bring up in a sales conversation. And you probably have one of those. And maybe within that sales conversation, that sales process, you might tweak it as you go through on the fly. But you probably have that one main one you start with, and then hopefully you might adjust on the fly or you don't. But you have that one presentation, and it's probably drafted the way that you see the world. the way that you process, what's important to you, the golden rule, how you want to be treated, treat others as you would want to be treated. So that means if you look at the 4 different codes, you're probably delivering the right script 1 out of 4 times. Well, what that means is you're probably delivering the wrong script 3 out of 4 times. And that sounds bad, and it is bad. But what that really means is if somebody's in a sales conversation with you, and when I talk about that, I mean people who come to you and say, I know what you do and I'd like to learn more, and maybe I'm interested in what you have to offer. I'm not talking about walking up to somebody randomly on the street and saying, hi, my name is Dawn, and will you buy what I have to sell? I'm talking about when you have a legitimate sales conversation. And so if in that legitimate sales conversation, you are delivering the wrong script 75% of the time, that means that your competitors are getting the business that you're losing. So you're building your competitors' businesses 75% more strongly than you are your own. And that's really just not okay. You don't want to be doing that. So to put this in numbers, to put this in reality so you can really see what's going on, I want you to think about what your annual revenue was last year. And what I'll do is I'll go through this using Sherry's numbers from that when she tried really hard and she got to $72,000 a year, just so you can see how this plays out. But either, on a notepad or in your head, I want you to do this with your numbers. So Sherry's number is 72,000. And so let's say times 3, because that was 3 out of 4 times she was delivering or potentially delivering the wrong presentation. And that meant $216,000 a year that she was potentially leaving on the table. Clients she could have closed if she were delivering the right presentation. And then you take that $216,000 a year that she was leaving on the table, and you say, well, for how many years? Like, how many years am I going to be in business? How many years am I going to be doing this? And so let's say 20. And that leaves a whopping $4.32 million that's in potential lost revenue. And that's really when you start to look at that and go, wow, my potential, not just revenue, but the difference I could make in the world and the impact I could have. What have I been missing out on? And so, we want to take it to the bank because it's a great acronym to use in a lot of spaces. And what could you do with that in your life and in your business and in the world? So that's where we bring in that increase your sales up to 300%. So here's how it works. So if you think about the fact that we probably look through the world with our particular lens. So I have my Dawn lens. And that's great. So that means anybody else that really connects with me on that Dawn level, I've got a pretty good chance of connecting with them, communicating. If it's in a sales conversation, closing more sales. Let's say I add a second language, action. Well, now I've just increased my chances of 100% to really speak in their language and deliver the right presentation. Well, now let's add a third language, nurturing. Now I've just increased my chances of communicating well, connecting with them in their language by 200%. And then let's add the fourth language, knowledge. And that is how I have the potential and the opportunity to close up to 300% more sales. So here's the system. Blueprint, action, nurturing, knowledge. And here's where I'm going to introduce the 4 codes to you and really help you see the differences among the 4. So let's start with blueprint. Before we delve too far into blueprint, let me just say something about the colors. There are some personality assessments that are based on colors. I think there's the color theory, there's the colors, whatever. And even though we have colors associated with each of the 4 codes, we don't call them their colors. Like, this isn't blue, this is blueprint. But Sherry had to come up with the colors. So obviously, if there's blueprint, the obvious color is blue. So I want you to look at the graphic in the lower left-hand corner, and it's a box. Blueprints are all about in the box. They love the box. They love structure. They love the sides, the four walls, the ceiling, the floor, all of that. They love the box. And here's what they value: stability, structure, systems, planning, processes, predictability, responsibility, duty, rules, credentials, titles, and tradition. So you can see that the person that's a blueprint really likes formality, structure, safety. They want to avoid risk. They follow the rules. Blueprints are the ones that if you say rules were meant to be and you say followed, that's a very blueprint answer. To give you an example of how this shows up, so this webinar that I'm doing right now is absolutely live, and I also know that sometimes technology does not always work. So I've recorded this presentation earlier so that just in case something happens tonight, I have a recorded version I can use as the replay. That is my blueprint going. I've got to feel safe here. I've got to take care of all the ramifications. What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? I need to feel safe. And I feel a responsibility to you all. You sign up, you take the time to put in your name and email and sign up for this thing. And some of you might show up live. Some of you count on getting the replay. And if I don't come through, I've let you down. I cannot handle thinking that I might let anybody down. That is part of my blueprint. And I am a very high blueprint. It is my second code, but it's a very high code. Now, looking at how this shows up in the world, if you were at a networking event or even in a social event, someone who's an extremely high blueprint would just greet you with a very formal, traditional handshake. So I'm going to tell you a story about Jeff, and he's got a great testimonial for bank, and that's awesome. And I want to play a little game with you. As I read his testimonial, I want you to pick out the very blueprint words in his sentences. So let me start. I was skeptical at first, but I followed the step-by-step system and closed 100% of my next 8 clients. This gave me a track record I could bank on. Now, when I do this live, it's really cool because I ask for people to go, so what are the blueprint words? And they yell it out and we have a nice discussion. So since we're live, but there's also a lag in the live streaming, I'll just go ahead and fill in the answers for you. So there's skeptical, step-by-step, system, and track record. All these things that really help a blueprint feel safe. Now, Jeff's story is he was a financial advisor making $250,000 a year, not a bad salary at all. And he found out about bank, took the training, and said, I'm absolutely happy to make more than $250,000. So let's see if it works. So he did. He used bank. And like he said, he closed the next 8 clients. So the next 8 people who came into his office and he had the sales conversation with, he used the bank system, he figured out their code, and then he talked to them in their language, and they all said yes. The addendum, the epilogue to this story is that after those 8 successes, he said, I know this, I got this, I don't need to use the bank system. When the 9th person came into his office, he did not code them. He did not speak to them in their language, and they said no. So it is something that really works. All right, let's move to action. Action is red. If you think about the red on the RPM scale, Red Bull for breakfast, explosive fireworks. You can see in the lower left-hand corner, you've got a rocket coming out of the box, because while blueprints are inside the box, the actions are outside the box. They do not like the box. They would rather there not be a box. And in some cases, they can be absolute polar opposites to the blueprints. Here is what the actions value: freedom, flexibility, spontaneity, action, opportunity, excitement, attention, stimulation, competition, winning, fun, image. Over my 15 years in business, working majority, I'd say probably 80% of the people I worked with were entrepreneurs, business owners. And what they almost always told me, that the reason why they started their business was either because of freedom or flexibility. So a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, their action is very high. And these are the ones that get a real charge out of, say, competition. They want to win. They want the spotlight to be on them. And while my action is my third, it's still kind of a high action. It's below my nurture. It's below my blueprint, but it does show up. And I do have a competitive edge. I was valedictorian of my high school class, and by golly, I was going to be valedictorian. There wasn't going to be anybody else who was going to be better than I was. So it shows up everywhere. So, of course, because they're high actions and they like lots of energy and high energy, their typical greeting could be like a high five or something else that has a lot of energy to it. Let's look at the story of Yancey. You'll see her name is Yancey unequivocally, and she legally changed her name because she wanted to be the only one, kind of like Tigger. T-I-double-G, how's it go? T-I-double-G-er, that's it. Because I'm the only one. She wanted to be the only one. Now, she was in a very blueprint job and absolutely miserable, making $50,000 a year. That wasn't necessarily why she was miserable. She was more miserable because she was in the wrong fit. Put a high action into a high blueprint job, or vice versa, or mismatch any of the other codes to the work that you're doing, and you're going to be miserable. So let's look at what she says and see if we can pick out the action words. Bank is a total game changer. Using this simple and fun system allowed me to crush my sales and laugh my way to the bank. I did this presentation or something similar like it a couple of months ago, and somebody pointed out she uses all exclamation points, and it was for a company and their employees, and they all turned to this one woman and they're like, "Oh my God, you use exclamation points everywhere." They'd already determined that she was a high action, but it was just so funny for them to turn to her and go, "Oh, you use exclamation points everywhere." All right, so her high action words: game changer, simple, fun, crush, laugh, and then of course the exclamation points. So I told you she was in a high blueprint job making $50,000 a year, and she decided that if she could make her side business be profitable enough to make $50,000 a year, she could leave this awful job she had. Well, using bank, she made $250,000 in 18 months. Do you think she left her job? Yeah. And do you think she gave 2 weeks notice? Oh, heck no. They were probably lucky if she even made a phone call going, "Yeah, not going to be in today." When she was gone, she was gone. All right, let's talk about nurturing. The color is yellow because it's the color of sunshine and sunflowers and people who have a heart of gold. Blueprints are inside the box. Actions are outside the box. And the nurturers recycle the box. And I know I'm sounding a little like I'm making fun of it, and I'm really not, because we really do. I'm a high nurturer. It's my highest code. We care about the world. We want to make a difference. Here are a nurturer's values: relationships, authenticity, personal growth, significance, teamwork, involvement, community, charity, ethics, harmony, morality, and contribution. They are all about people and relationships, and that's the currency they work in, is relationships. Of course, their greeting is going to be a hug. Now, here I want to tell you about Nani and about that whole idea of their currency is all about relationships. She says, bank changed my life. It helped me in business, and it also improved my personal relationships with my friends and family. Bank is priceless. So the very nurturing words are changed my life, helped me, improved personal relationships, friends and family, priceless. Because for nurturers, you can't put a price on these things that are ultimately important to them. Now, Nani's story is she was involved in many direct sales and network marketing ventures. And if you're familiar with that industry, then what you know is 98% of the people make $500 or fewer a year. It's the 2% who really make it big time, and then that's what inspires everybody to come on, and then they don't make more than $500 a year. And she was actually fine with that, because what she was doing in her way, she was helping the world. She was changing the world, until her house went into foreclosure. And then her family was at stake. So she had taken the bank training, and she asked Sherry, well, is this going to work in direct sales and network marketing? And Sherry said, absolutely. So Nani decided to really go full-fledged and really apply bank to her business and see her business as a business. And she made $32,000 in 1 week. She went on to win the red BMW, which was the winning, what the top salespeople in that particular network marketing company got when they got to a certain level. So she did what she wanted to do. She saved her house. She helped her family. She made a difference. And all of that was because she was making more money and being more profitable. So now we come to the knowledge, the K's, and their color is green. If you think about the Microsoft Excel, the X is green in the Microsoft world. If you're familiar with the Matrix movies and all that code that just flows down the screen, it's green. You think about green technology, high-tech stuff. So green really seems to fit the knowledges. Their box, so let's review. Blueprints are in the box. Actions are outside the box. Nurturers recycle the box. And knowledges engineer the box. And their values are learning, intelligence, logic, self-mastery, technology, research and development, science, universal truths, expertise, competence, accuracy, the big picture. They love information. They're all about information. Now, as a funny little sideline, the way that they might greet people, we could look at the whole Spock, live long and prosper. And while that doesn't show up in the real world, what might actually show up in the real world, and we've actually seen this happen, is you go to shake someone's hand, say at a networking event, and instead of them shaking your hand back, they immediately present you with a business card. And that is a way to put a barrier between you and them. No touchy, don't touchy. I always think of Emperor's New Groove with Emperor Cusco saying, no touchy, no touchy. This really does come out in real life. A couple of years ago, before I found bank, and I wish I'd known bank back then, because this is a situation that to this day just makes me feel awful. We were meeting a friend of mine, hadn't seen her in several years, and she and her boyfriend were going to be hiking the Appalachian Trail from like Vermont to Virginia, and they were coming through Maryland. And I hadn't seen her in many years, but since she was coming through Maryland, she contacted me and said, why don't we meet up and we can hike for about an hour, and then you guys go back and we'll just continue on. And I said, that's great. So she and her boyfriend, whom I hadn't met before, we meet on the trail and we're just having a grand old time. And if I'd known bank and I'd been paying attention in the bank world, I would have noticed that her boyfriend, John, and Mark were talking about all sorts of these very detailed things like the Tracy Arm Tours in Alaska, and when the Tracy Arm Tours first started and how many people went on them, and just all this very statistic information based conversation, which Mark loved because he's got some high K in him. But didn't know bank, and Regina and I are just enjoying each other. We're enjoying being able to catch up after several years, and the hour comes to a close and it's time to say goodbye. So I give Regina a hug because she's my friend and I'm a high nurturer. And I go to give her boyfriend, John, a hug. And he literally just stood there so stiffly. And the moment that I went to give him a hug and I felt that, and I backed off, but I knew I'd screwed up. And I knew that I'd been disrespectful. And I still to this day feel awful about it. And if I'd had bank back then, I would have heard the clues and the cues. I would have understood what his top personality was. And I would have tried to see the world through his lenses. And that's what bank really does, is it allows us to see the world how other people see the world. And we don't have to change, but we can respect how they see the world, and we can speak in their language. And that is what this system really has done for me, is it's allowed me to, even more than I already have, respect the authentic person in you, because authenticity is one of my top values. And it allows me to understand who you are and how that might be different from who I am, and give me a language to talk to you in. And bank transcends sales and customer service and client retention to go much deeper into, it's about communication and relationships and respecting who the other person is. All right, so sorry, had to go off in my soapbox a little bit about that. So let's talk about Yoram. Pick out the very high knowledge words. Bank gave me a quantum leap advantage in business from every other program I've studied. This course is an absolute no-brainer. So the knowledge words: quantum leap, program, studied, course, no-brainer. High Ks, high knowledge people, their currency is information. They love information. They can't get enough of it. And Yoram, he was an IT consultant as his day job, but for 20 years he'd been a disc trainer. And when he came upon bank, he thought, oh, there's a gap here that disc doesn't quite fill. And so let me learn more about bank. So he did. And then he decided he wanted to become a trainer full time. So he worked on selling his IT consultancy business. And in that negotiation, he coded, and I'll say more about what that means in a moment, the person who was interested in buying his company. And then he adjusted his presentation in the moment based on who that person was. And as a result, the sales price of his IT business increased by $30,000. So he got $30,000 more than the low price that he thought he was going to have to offer in order to sell it. So now I want to go back to my bio. And now that you're thinking in terms of bank and you're thinking in terms of blue, red, yellow, green, you might notice something about my bio. I've done what we call bankify it, which is to try to speak to all 4 codes so that all 4 codes see something that they can connect with. So the first one, founder and CEO of the Shuler Group, LLC. So you know that I've gone through the effort to go whatever process I needed to do to make it an official LLC. There's a CEO, there is a structure, there's a hierarchy. Successful business owner for over 15 years. For the majority of my business career, I have been profitable and successful. So for actions that speaks to them because they like that whole idea of success. I've helped hundreds of business owners, executives, individuals thrive. Like, oh, I'm making a difference. And then I've put the work in to write books, speak constantly, and become a certified trainer. And so the knowledges appreciate the effort and the knowledge I must have gained in order to do those things. All right, so one of the things I want to share with you, and this is some really powerful information. So Sherry Tree developed this system 20 years ago, and she developed the 4 codes, their values, the language that she needed to speak in order to be successful in the sales conversation. She did all that. Great, had fabulous results. You've seen some of those. When San Francisco State University did the research study last year, what they pulled out is that there's actually 5 top reasons why each of the codes will buy, why they will say yes. So it was interesting that Sherry didn't come up with this. Now, she might have intuitively known it or subconsciously known it, but it came out of the research study. So the top 5 reasons why a blueprint will say yes is it's within my budget, there are excellent written details describing the product or service, the overall reputation of the company or person I'm buying from, positive recommendations from people I know, overall product service ratings from customers. All those triggers, all those reasons to say yes are because it makes them feel safe and they're avoiding risk. Action. Number 1, celebrity endorsements. 2, media and social buzz. They do not want to feel left out. 3, automated recommendations. So, for example, when you're on Amazon and you see the people who bought X also bought Y, actions love that because it's quick and it's easy. They don't have to spend a lot of time researching because they don't have the time to do that. They want to do it now, 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 now. Reviews and relevant publications, my gut feeling. So if you have somebody saying, you know, it just felt right, or conversely, it just felt wrong, they're making those decisions based on instinct. Nurturing buying triggers. Number 1, whether the company makes a contribution to a worthwhile cause. 2, knowing that I'm buying the best possible good or service. 3, positive recommendations from people I know. 4, quality of the presentation of the product or service. 5, excellent written details describing the product or service. So when I first came across this information, I didn't quite resonate with that top one, that whether the company makes a contribution to a worthwhile cause. And I thought, I don't care. You know, for me, it's really more about the person and the relationship and blah, blah, blah. Until recently, Mark and I were at a bed and breakfast in Pennsylvania, and it was an amazing place. And they had an on-site restaurant, farm-to-table food, amazing food. And when we left the next day, I noticed on the front door a decal that said lifetime member of the Pennsylvania Sustainable Agricultural Association or something like that. And I pointed out to Mark, I'm like, oh, look, isn't that cool? They're a lifetime member, sustainable agriculture. And then it hit me. I'm like, that's where that nurturing buying trigger shows up for me. It was important to me that environment and sustainable agricultural practices was important to them. and they advertised that, and they were a lifetime member. So these things that we may not see immediately, they really are there. Maybe subconscious or unconscious, but they're there. Knowledge buying triggers. Number 1, my budget. Number 2, having the information I need to make the smartest decision possible. Number 3, when I have had the time to do full due diligence on the purchase. Number 4, excellent written details describing the product or service. And number 5, knowing that I'm buying the best possible good or service. For knowledge, it has to be that they're making a smart decision. They cannot make a mistake. The other thing I want to point out is you may have noticed that some of the triggers are the same for a couple of them. And if you've really been paying attention, then you've noticed that excellent written details describing the product or service shows up in 3 out of 4 of the codes. The only one it does not show up in is the action, because they're not going to take the time to read, honestly. All right. So as you've been doing this, or as you've been listening to this, reviewing this webinar, you probably have already been thinking in your head what your code is. And when we say your code, we mean the order that these 4 different personalities show up, because nobody is just one code. We're a mixture of all 4. And we're all different. So for example, I am a nurture, blueprint, action, knowledge. So I'm sure you're thinking about what your code is. You may even be thinking about what your spouse's code is, or your mom's code, or your kid's code, or your best friend's code. And you're starting to get some ahas, I'm guessing, because I know I certainly did when I was first introduced to this. So there are 24, if you remember your statistics, your probabilities and statistics class way back in high school, there are actually 24 possibilities of combinations of the 4 different personality types. And so when you think about that and you go, wow, it's actually not just a 1 out of 4 chance of getting it right. It's a 1 out of 24 chance of getting it right, which is a 4% chance of delivering the right presentation to the right code. Now that may seem daunting, but there is actually a way to get that cryptex and get the right code so that you don't break the vial of vinegar and you actually open it up and reveal the code. Now, and see, I'm ahead of myself because I get excited. In person, when I'm with someone in person, I actually have a set of these codes, or these cards, and they're like credit card style cards that I hand someone. And I ask them, do me a favor, put these cards in the order from top to bottom in the way that best describes you. This will help me serve you better and save us both some time. And so they put them in the order, and then they hand them back to me, and boom, I have their code. And I know what language to talk to them in. Now, you may think that that feels a little gimmicky, or who really uses that? I actually use it all the time. And here's a story about Darren, who offered IT services to large companies. And he had an opportunity to pitch his services to a multi-billion-dollar corporation. He was going into the board of directors meeting, and he was going to give them a presentation. He had trained on bank, and before he was getting ready to go into his presentation, he talked to Sherry Tree, and he said, well, what do I do? And she said, give them the cards, have them code themselves. He said, really? Like, these are like board of directors. Like, these are like big deal people. Like, I can't do that. She said, sure you can. And I got a little ahead of myself because I was getting my glass of water, and my water glass hit the keyboard. He went in, he coded everybody. They all did the cards. They did them in order, and they were all excited. They were looking at each other like, ooh, what did you get? Ooh, what's your code? Da, da, da. And he paid attention, took notes, and realized that almost everybody around the board table was a high nurturer. And because he was thinking board of directors, multi-billion-dollar company, they're interested in my IT services, he had developed his presentation as a very high blueprint, very high knowledge. And when he saw that most of them were nurturers, he said, oh no, it's not going to work. So he closed his laptop and he just spoke from the heart. And he got the deal. He got the $250,000 contract. And not just did he connect with them and talk to them from the heart, but he set himself apart from any of the other IT companies who had come in to pitch their services. Nobody else came in caring who they were. They just wanted to say, oh, here's our company, and here's what you need to know about us, and this is what we do. Darren's company was the only one who said, I care about who you are. So once you tell me who you are, then let's communicate in your language. Now, of course, you may not always have the opportunity to hand somebody a set of cards. And if you want a set of cards, you can talk to me personally and I can tell you how to get those. And while having the cards in person is very helpful, there's also what we call Bank Pass, which is a way to do this online. So if you were to even go right now to mybankcode.com/Shuler, SHULER, you have the opportunity to crack your code online. So you have the 4 cards right there, and you just use your mouse and you put them in order. You drag and drop, and then you click the button that says crack my code. You fill in your name, email address, and a phone number, and then the results get sent to you, the client, about your code. And then they also get sent to me as the owner of the Bank Pass. And I have an online dashboard which allows me to see everybody who's ever cracked their codes, their full code. And I also get to track what their, as far as the dominant codes, like what are the dominant codes? How does this all factor out into my database? Really powerful stuff. So bank, I believe, is perfect for everyone, but let's look specifically. People who are in sales, financial services, real estate, professionals, online marketing, relationships, speakers and coaches, education and consultants, leadership, corporate. What I can tell you is that Mark and I communicate differently and more powerfully. I get less irritated at my daughters. I understand my friends and even my clients and my prospects and just people I come into contact with, because I'm so immersed in this. I'm coding people even without the cards constantly, and then understanding, that person is a high blueprint. So I'm not going to go all touchy-feely, woo-woo that I would normally do with another high nurturer. So why would you want to think about bank in your own business and in your own life? Well, Les Brown says bank is a game changer for every entrepreneur and sales professional. This system will strengthen your confidence, expand your selling skills, and dramatically increase your income. Remember that sales statistic that 87% of people feel unprepared when they walk into a sales presentation or they have that sales conversation? What I know for a fact is just understanding what somebody's code is and knowing what the language is that I should speak in order to connect more powerfully with them ups my confidence immensely. I have a system I can rely on. I have a language I can rely on. I don't have to wing it. I don't have to do it off the cuff. I don't have to rely solely on my intuition. I've been able to look back and go, oh, that's why that client signed on. Or, oh, that's why that prospect probably said no. It really does increase your confidence. Sherry Tree's vision is one world, one language. She has taken this across the world, over 40 countries. She has lived all over the world. And so she has a really good understanding of different people and cultures. And since this system is based on your values, what you find important to you, it transcends language. So the solution, bringing bank into your business, into your life. We offer many different ways to do this. One is virtual training, where you have 24/7 access to a multi-million-dollar high-tech learning platform where you can get this information at any time of the day. We also offer live trainings. Mark and I are certified licensed trainers, which means we have been trained to teach this information and we are licensed to do so. And as you're looking at whether this is something that you want to pursue, what I want you to think about is, what would more yeses mean to your bottom line? Hopefully, as a smart business owner and entrepreneur, you know what the average revenue is for one client. So if you get one client, that usually equals X amount of revenue. So what does that one yes mean in terms of money? I also want to share with you that because Bank, it's been around for 20 years, but the company itself has been around for 7, and Sherry has been certifying and training trainers because she can't do it all herself. We are experiencing huge explosive growth. And so consultants and trainers, we're bringing those on in order to spread the word about Bank into the world and to help others improve their businesses. We're in 40 companies. So 40 countries. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. We are in over 40 countries. As a matter of fact, Sherry just did a huge launch in Sweden, I believe it was, Sweden, Norway, Netherlands. I think that whole upper Northern European, where they just went full force. She did an expansion in Singapore about a year ago. So we are in over 40 countries. There are 150 trainers worldwide, and it's not enough. Franklin Covey has 45,000 trainers, and they can't meet the demand. So we are looking for more people. So you can see over there on your screen that what I am asking or offering you is, if you'd like, if you're interested, schedule a complimentary Why They Buy consultation. The reason why I'm calling it Why They Buy is Sherry's book is going to be out this summer. We are launching it at the International Convention for Bank, that we're calling it BANKCODE. Les Brown is our keynote speaker, and it's all about why they buy. So if you are interested in learning how Bank can help your business and life just by getting more yeses, or by actually bringing it in as part of your business, I would love to talk to you about this. So feel free to click on the link or go to that link and sign up for a complimentary consultation with me. And then if you do that, my gift to you is to give to you your customized reports. I'm trying to get to the right page here. Code. So remember how there are 24 different codes? For each code, and that means like me, I am an NBAK. For each code, there is a personality report and there is a sales report. So for example, you can learn why you do the things you do, your personality profile, how you make decisions, communication tips, your strengths at a glance. I'll also send you the sales report on your particular code, which gives you quick tips on that person's code, personality profile, how to communicate for receptivity, communication tips, how to negotiate with proven triggers, and how to close the sale for that particular code. So like I said, there's 48 of them. I'll happily give you 2 for your particular code. And all you have to do is sign up for a complimentary consultation with me. And I have been really pleased to share this information with you the webcam. Bye. Thank you again for spending your time with me. I hope you've enjoyed it. I would love to answer any questions you have about bank. I'd love to help you improve your business, improve your communication, make even more of a difference in the world, and help you thrive. So thank you again. Have a fabulous rest of your day or evening, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Goodbye.